conversations. We're still speaking to former Sergeant Major SW Fourie from South African Special Forces, 1 Reconnaissance Regiment, 1st 1 Reconnaissance Commando when he joined. And we talked about his selection in the previous episode. But in the meantime, I found these 2 pictures, which is now on the screen right behind me. I wonder, Esvia, can you just tell us something about them? It looks like a selection to me.
Yes, yeah. This is the. I'm not sure if this is the old or the new selection. I can maybe explain the difference between the 2 selections. The first one was about 7 days. A lot of working on it. You don't really get monitor between your different RV points. You will arrive at the RV, you get a task, a new team leader appointed, and then you would go to the next RV. But in between, you're not monitored. So you arrive on the other side, it's just like who fell off, and who survived. So, and that carried on for 7 days. The new selection or election course is only 72 hours. You have await a complete 72 hours. You get monitored most of the time. You get evaluated by 4 operators, senior operators, and 4 psychologists. So each and every one there will be in that time span of 72 hours, will be evaluated by all 8 people there present. You wear civilians, the same with the psychologist, which is from the army side. Nobody wear uniform. So these guys on course got no idea who you are. You will walk with a clipboard, and then you will say, okay, you're the next team leader. You will give them a printout, what they must do. Compass bearing, they must carry that cross. It's an iron cross. Sometimes the iron cross, there's a ball on it. Or sometimes a 44-gallon drum, half with water. So the poor short guys were always in a disadvantage because the water will lie down on their side. So it was interesting. They were, as they progress on the course, they will start asking you questions and you just ignore them. So eventually they start ignoring you as well. They would say, okay, let's empty this drum a little bit. And then they will look at you and you just turn a blind eye on them. And that way, it's not really if you penalize them, if they have that initiative. One of the exercises, you would give them an army tent, 16 feet by 16 feet. And there's a lot of ropes and tents, tent poles, and then you give them a spot where you know that it's impossible for them to put up the tent there. But now they're running in 48 hours with no sleep, so no more sense of humor. They're tired, they're hungry, and then you start really see who can work under pressure, who can work on a team, and that will carry on. And we can probably ask James, because James was a lot involved with the new selection, that he can give us we can add it on here, exactly what it's entitled. Now, I was fortunate that I was on one of them. So then what happened is that they will complete the whole 72 hours, and then we will sit down, and each one of us will have 1 or 2 guys that you've drawn up a report. Once everybody discussed it. So we will have an open discussion, the 8 of us, plus the team leader, course leader. In our case, it was SW Fourie. So we will discuss each student. Now, there were some of the guys that passed the physical part, but was failed from our side, where we say, yes, physically he's good, he will do it, mentally not. He's not a team player, he can't work in small teams. ironically, the last part where they finished, that was at Dukaduk, KwaZulu-Natal. I think I told you the previous one, I will probably tell it again. How we do it is that each one of them walk on a compass bearing by themselves at night. They don't know it's the last part of selection. So what we do is that we will ambush them. Normally 2 instructors will jump on one of the students and we will pull a bag over his head, tie his arms, and then tie the rope, tie his arms. There's one student, we decided, yeah, this guy is big, strong built. So we decided that we must be at least 4 jumping on top of him. So we did. And it was a cloud of dust, and I was the guy with the bag. And I eventually got hold of a headgear. I pulled the bag over his head, and I said, yes, this troop can swear. And I was busy spinning this rope around his neck, and I felt, yeah, all of a sudden this troop's got a beard. He didn't have a beard before. I had somebody at Tilly Smith, one of the older instructors. I was busy tying him up. It was quite funny.
Yeah, I was laughing so much in the background. Now I've got tears here. I can just imagine this poor guy. And of course, I believe his troop just run away. I mean, let the instructors fight. Yeah, but that would have been the dark phase where the interrogation started, where you tested him on interrogation. I just want to say the full cycle for selection was what, 18 months or
yes,
actually 3 years at one stage.
There were a dark phase as well. We didn't do it; it only came on later on. But ironically, with this, where with this one, we would tie the guys sitting on their back against a pole, and we would tie their arms behind the pole. And then what we would do, of course, they will still have the bags over their heads. So we had a walk-in freezer there, and we put dustbins there with water. So we would take this water and start pouring it over the head, not saying anything. We had 2 or 3 guys, black guys, talking Portuguese. So they got no idea where they were and who these guys are. So of course, they couldn't see who actually caught them. And it was, ironically, there was at least 2 or 3 guys that packed up there emotionally. They couldn't take it. They was just starting to yell, and they didn't know it was the last day. 5 minutes later, they finished. Yeah, so that was the new selection, a 72-hour selection, in comparison to the older one. But the passing rate, what James told me, James Teitger, was more or less exactly the same. So there wasn't a difference actually in the old and the new selection on the passing rates.
And why were they speaking Portuguese, these Black Special Forces members? What was the reason why they were speaking Portuguese to these prisoners?
So that these guys must be under the impression that they were caught by a foreigner force. No idea what happened to them.
Yeah, because you people would be mostly in the former Portuguese colonies. You were operating in Mozambique and Angola. The local people would be speaking Portuguese, I suppose. Today they would use French or something. But I can imagine this is frightening. I mean, you walk down there, of course, you've heard the stories. The next moment is instructors jump you from behind. There's one hell of a fight. I'm sure you can swing back if it's possible. But these guys will overcome you and they will tie you down. And at that stage, you're so tired that your mind starts.
Yeah, after 72 hours, and they were sitting on gravel. And as you start walking to them, you can see they start busy shivering. And now the next thing is this ice cold water again. I mean, after 72 hours, you're out of energy, you're out of sense of humor. And now you hear this guy approaching you, and now the next thing is that ice cold water.
Yeah, I have to ask you though, because I've heard about other special forces units where they have some kind of a code system going. I believe it's the US Air Force as well, when they train their pilots, and there is former US military person here or military listening here, we're not trying to insult you at all. But they have, to me, a bit of low standards because they would have some kind of a signal where they would tell these instructors to stop, bullying them or working with them. Did you ever have such signals where you could get the instructors to leave you alone for a while so that you can just, catch your breath?
No. You will be kicked under the butt and you're out. There's a lot of fire here. You're going to take a breath. I'm just going to ask the enemy not to shoot now. I'm just going to take a smoke break. No.
Yeah, so you were very realistic. I mean, if that guy really thought he might actually be captured by the enemy. Well, that is, I have to say, I feel quite, well, I'm not that sorry for them. I mean, they volunteered, but I do see the humor in this.
Yeah. One thing, a little bit off the point, which I think the Special Forces from the admin side or from management side, where they slipped up, is the RTUs, return to unit. If you failed, they weren't handled correctly. I mean, not everybody is Special Forces material, but they may be good as an armor guy, a parachutist or paratrooper. So they were like dumped back in Durban at 1 Reconnaissance Commando. So they should have treated them better, not like, sorry, you're not good enough. Yeah, so I think they slipped up a little bit.
Well, we can always learn from that. Can you tell me this picture below in front of us? It looks like we're making fire. Now, you were describing that in detail in the first episode.
Yeah, that one on the right is exactly that. That's the way we would teach pilot bushmen how to turn. Initially, when you start, on all courses you are, except now selection unit team, you would be a buddy pair. So even on survival, in survival it was me and Major Schofield. That's where he came. I forgot it. So I couldn't speak English at all. So but we had one thing in common. We were both very hungry. So we actually became good friends. But my E's and R never made sense to him.
He was a British officer, I presume.
Yeah, he was from Britain. I'm not sure which unit he was qualified in. But he was more matured. He was like in his 30s. Yeah. Yes, and that is exactly what's happening there. It's making fire with a stick.
Okay. No, well, that's good. Is there anything else you want to say about selection? We I suppose should have put it in the previous one, but this episode is actually about the first operations in Mozambique. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting. I just want to say to people listening here, neither SW or myself claim to be native English speakers. We're trying our best. The book, as you can see there below as well, will be in English. Perhaps later in Afrikaans, we don't know, but at this stage in English. And it should be out in about 2 months from now. In other words, it should be out by around about the end of August, somewhere in September 2021, if God willing, of course. So I think what I'll do now is we will switch to the first operation.
Just before that course, I missed two courses when we actually finished minor tactics. There were the deployment of Ops Heki, and that was the black day for Special Forces, South African Special Forces, where 7 guys were killed. There weren't enough space for us on the C-130s leaving from Durban, Louis Botha Airport. So we were left behind, and then we did 2 more courses. We did a mountaineering course. I've got a photo of that, and we would the level of how difficult is marked from F1, F2, F3, G1. G1, you're basically only climbing with your arms, so you have to have strong shoulders, strong forearms. So that course we also did basic mountaineering, and we also did forward air control, where we would bring in airstrikes Ironically, we only worked with bringing airstrikes from aeroplanes, fighter jets. And at the end of my period in Special Forces, we would have actually brought in fire from artillery, which was more or less the same, but yeah. So that was the two other courses we did. I'm not sure where we will fit in, which direction I actually start specializing in. Will we fit it somewhere else before we go?
You can tell us about it. We know you became an explosive expert. Perhaps you can tell us about that, because it fits into the training cycle if we think about it.
Yes, Yes, so you can select yourself which direction you prefer to go. Some guys, like I said, parachuting, some guys medic. So everybody was a medic. It was just that you can do more advanced medical training. I decided on explosive because it was the best pay to get. I think the only allowance higher than that was test pilot. And that stayed for the Cheetah airplanes that we actually built ourselves. So that was your highest allowance. And then EUD, IUD, that was bomb disposable. EUD as ordnance explosive devices, and IED was improvised explosive devices, is where they would plant a device either to take out the IED operator. That's what they did overseas against the British guys. So they weren't that much interested to cause maximal damage to people around there, where in South Africa, that was their idea. So I did, after basic demolition, I went for intermediate, then advanced. Then I did the EUD, IED, and then I did the clandestine explosives. That's where, that was taught by Dr. Van Enjoy. It was brilliant. He would teach you how to manufacture explosive, how to turn a bicycle into a carrier of explosive, and how to have explosive look like butter. And that we will now use to train the guerrilla forces and supply that to them for them to use again. So yeah, that was the route I decided to go.
I did ask you in the previous one that should you be on standby to defuse bombs in South Africa in those days, and there were some bombs exploding. People don't want to know this, but there were a lot of bombs actually exploding in those days, all aimed at civilian targets.
Yeah.
Very seldom were they actually hitting the security forces as such. So if you were on standby to go and defuse a bomb, I asked you this in the previous Afrikaans version, would you have been in uniform, in your normal special forces day-to-day uniform?
No, we would have worked in civilian clothes, and you would have like a combi, a Volkswagen combi. And inside of that will be all your equipment that you would need. Also, we had it looks like a small bulldozer tractor. On that was a water spout charge in a metal cylinder. You had a small charge at the back, and inside that would be X amount cc of water, and that we used to disrupt the parcels. We wouldn't use another explosive to disrupt it, because that would initiate, just make the explosion bigger. So we would have this, I'm not sure what is the right word for it. It's like a small bulldozer tractor.
Yeah, like a robot, like a little, which we use these days with, well, I'll put a picture of one of these things in it. It looks like a vehicle. It goes out to the parcel, and then you don't need to.
Yeah, it runs on tracks or wheels, I can't remember. And then in front of this tube, we would have a piece of wire about 30 centimeters long, because you would sit at the back of the vehicle controlling this tractor, but you didn't have view of depth. So you had no idea how far you were from the parcel. So, and in front of this piece of wire, you would have a white masking tape. And so we would put this arm forward until the white masking tape touches the parcel, then you know you're at exactly the right distance away. And then you can detonate it from the back.
But you could take pictures of this thing too, of a parcel. You could do, I believe, X-ray pictures of it to see what's inside.
Yeah, yeah.
But how did you get it there? I mean, do you have to crawl up to this parcel? Can you just take us through? Let's say I'm a police sergeant. I'm calling the bomb squad. You arrive. What do you do? And I know it's 40, 50 years later now, so...
Yeah, there will be a barricade so that you will have direct access to it. And then it will be explained where it is. And then you would, on a combi, you have two steel plates, and then, or one, I can't remember, it's too long ago. You would run this vehicle down onto the ground, but you had a limitation on how far the cables can go. So you are just outside. If it was a massive charge, you would have been in the killing zone. Then you would send this thing forward. Not always possible. Sometimes you have to do a direct approach and put a mobile one, carry a mobile one, and put it right next to the parcel and disrupt it that way. Then you can't use the tractor, let's call it the tractor, or the bomb disposable vehicle. You can't use it. So you have to use a mobile, I can't remember the word, let's call it a spout, because it was a water spout.
Like a water cannon, like you just...
Yeah, like a water cannon, yeah.
Like the police guys used to put it right next to it, and then they blow the hell out of that suitcase.
Yeah, yeah, it will disrupt it completely. Yeah.
But I'm wondering, what goes through your mind? You walk up to that parcel and you're sort of alone there.
Yeah, you're all by yourself. We had a helmet with a visor, quite a thick visor, and then you would have the bomb suit carry on. Sometimes you don't feel like wearing it. It's extremely heavy, and you're not that mobile to do what you like to do. But yeah, it's probably better to have it on, not to have anything. If that bomb did, or overseas, they would have been. Our instructor were a British guy, British or Scottish guy, and he told us all the incidents they had. They would wait for the IED operated until he's very close to the parcel, and then they will put it off remotely. Luckily, our terrorists here weren't that advanced or clever to do it.
Yeah, well, you know, these things became quite famous or infamous, I would rather say, in Iraq and other places. They caused tremendous harm. I mean, explosives is a very powerful thing. And yeah, I admire that. I admire that. I think there must be a few thoughts going through your head, really, when you walk up to that thing. I know myself, you know, please, we've sometimes out and you would go and identify what explosives it is and then you move back.
Yeah, I think I have I may have the badge here. Can I quickly take it out?
Yes, of course.
Let me just see. You're gonna get a sinking feeling because the camera is gonna go.
It's going lower.
Yeah, here we are. Let's see, I've got it right way around now. Can you actually see it, Chris, or must I?
No, you have to bring it. You have to bring it in. Yeah, there you are. Okay, a little bit back. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sure we can see that. You can take us a picture as well. I'll put it in for us. So, what is that badge? What's that?
That is a bomb with a lightning sign that's going through the bomb, meaning you have disposed it. So that is your EOD IOD badge that you have.
Okay, so you can wear that on your uniform.
Yeah. You also get
one of your qualification badges.
That's right. Yeah.
I have a few jokes about bombs, but I'm not telling them. It's in Afrikaans one. This is not about me, but I can tell you it's not a joke, like really.
For that you get paid. So yeah, we didn't get paid. a lot of money. We got paid peanuts, but with these allowances, it makes up for it.
Yeah, no, I recalling the first one you said to us that you got paid something like 20 rands a month.
Yeah, and
Now,
basically,
even in those days, that could not have been more than about $30 a month, $40 a month, perhaps.
yeah, and ironically, after a month, you would still have change of the 20 rands.
Yeah, that's very good. We're going to talk in the future episodes, especially where you started using these skills of yours. There's a few bridges. Well, I know about one bridge example which were blown. We're going to talk about that. It's a very, very interesting episode, that. And I also know that your booby trap type of bombs were also used at some stage. And then also in later episodes, you went on counterterrorism operations.
Yeah.
Now, that is where special forces would go into a different country and attack a terrorist base. Now, like a house or a safe house or something, and then just attack it and do what is necessary. I just want to say to people here, we're using the language of a day. One man's terrorist is, of course, another one's freedom fighter. But I also have to say that SW himself, he has served in full uniform on the Army Command. There were nothing done which could not be defended in military law or international law. Otherwise, we wouldn't be telling you these stories.
Yeah.
Not. But you never operated in South Africa ever. You were always foreigners and in different countries.
Always in the neighbor countries. Yeah, never.
Yes.
Yeah. So our targets was military targets. We would avoid killing any civilians. So that was not our target.
It's interesting, right? Because, I'm in Switzerland now, and I do talk about the old days now. And I'm often asked the questions whether we killed civilians or not. And I would tell them about the leaflets being dropped on bases, military bases, telling the civilians and everybody to get out. And only after that, after a while, and then quite a while for them to get out, only then would the attack go in. That happened more than once. And then, of course, people don't want to know this, which is one of the reasons why we're having these conversations, is just to tell the truth from our viewpoint anyway. And then people can judge themselves, because you can't judge anything unless you've heard both sides of the story. And that's logical, even in law. So you've done all these courses. Perhaps you can just quickly mention that it was a medical course. It was signals where you learned the Morse code, because that's how you guys were operating. It was your static line parachute jump. You would go on later to do halo as well, where we jump from 20, 50,000 feet.
Yeah.
Then you did small tactics, which is actually the big one.
Your halo only came after about more than a year being in the unit. So they were not going to send you immediately on that, but it was, halo is just high altitude, low opening.
Yes, that's where you free fall, where you jump above the aircraft.
You would sit in the plane, in the C-130, and it will have a massive cylinder, like a diving cylinder, but 10 times, 20 times the size. And then all of you will be connected to that cylinder. So you will do pre-briefing for about an hour plus on the ground before you go up. And then when you add the actual height, let's say 25,000 feet, then the instructor will show you, disconnect. Remember, nobody can talk. Everybody's got a mask on, oxygen mask. I've got a photo of that, so we can maybe put that on as well. It will show you disconnect. So you would first connect your own cylinder. You've got a small cylinder just under your reserve parachute. So you would activate that and then deactivate from the main cylinder. But if you got anything close to claustrophobic, you're going to get it there, because the moment you open your own small cylinder, it forces the oxygen out. So you battle, you can breathe it in, but you can't breathe out again. So there was guys that do get that just panic. So it's a battle to get oxygen into you. And then they will open the ramp, and then you will start walking to the back of the ramp, but your goggles will be on top of your head, because I think it was -20, -30. So if your goggles were on your eyes, it will completely frozen up. You wouldn't be able to see anything. So just before the ramp, you will put your goggles on, and then you jump out. And the lack of resistance. So if you jump out and you in a slanted position, you will keep on falling like that for a while, and then as the resistance pick up, you will stable. And I may be incorrect. The parachute guys will probably punish me for this, but I think it's about a minute and a half that you actually do free falling before you open. And yeah, and then it's from that -30, 40, you down here to 20, 30 on the ground again. So it's extreme, yeah.
And I've heard a story that if your teeth are not in perfect condition, if you have like a filling which wasn't done properly,
yeah,
when you go up to those heights, because remember this aircraft is unpressurized, and yeah, if I open those doors at the back, it's extremely cold. But the nice thing is you can't hear that aircraft, actually you can't hear the engines above 25,000 feet. You cannot actually hear the engine, so they wouldn't know you're there.
Yeah, the idea was that our planes would fly exactly on the international route. So it's not a plane that's off the route, and on that route you will actually then jump out at that specific height, 25,000. There were some of the guys that did 35,000 feet. I think that was the highest. But the planes can't go higher than that, because we've picked it up. If they open a ramp and we start walking backwards, the planes start dropping at the back, because there's not enough resistance out there.
Yeah, and then of course I believe a cargo hold would be lit with these red, excuse me, these red cargo lights to assist you for night vision, because you weren't actually wearing one night vision.
No,
you would jump with your eyes, like you're sitting here right now.
Yeah, and then what was scary is you look at your what do you call it, altitude meter. Let's say it goes up to 15,000 maximum. Then you would see the needle running past 0. And it starts from the beginning again. And it's not as if the view from 25 doesn't really differ that much from 10,000. But so you have to look at your altimeter, and you would see it goes past 0, and then it starts again, let's say from 15,000, whatever.
And while you're falling down there, you're trying to keep formation, I suppose, with your mates, because you're not jumping alone. There might be some other people with you. Would you have some kind of strobe or something on you blinking away, or you're just trying to see them?
The guys did jump with a strobe on the back. Yeah, so that you can see the guy below you, the flash of the strobe. And I mean, I think you pick up speed up to 220 km per hour that you are falling through the air. You don't want to hit another guy that opened his parachute. I mean, it's like hitting a brick of walls. I mean, yeah, or hitting the water. The same thing. It's just as hard as cement.
No, that's very interesting. You will see now. In the meantime, I've changed the background behind me. I hope it comes out. It's a new system we're trying here. I ask for the patience of everybody who's watching and listening. What we have behind us is you. You standing in one of those pictures, and I think you're sitting there on a stretcher, reading some kind of a book.
Yeah. The bottom one was where we deployed for 3 months. We were about 400 km into Angola. The top one was our first deployment, operational deployment, and that was in Mozambique.
That was in Mozambique, because you are wearing there, it seems to me, Rhodesian camouflage.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Okay, Rhodesia, of course, still existed in those days. The country only became Zimbabwe about 2 years later.
Yeah. Do you want me to kick off with that operation? That was our first operation.
Yes, perhaps we can talk about that Ihiki attack,
Oh,
because you
yes,
missed
yeah.
the aeroplane, and then we'll go to Mozambique. And if it
Yeah,
sounds to you
Ihiki
people
was,
listening here that I know a lot, well, I've
yeah,
done the Afrikaans one already. So forgive me if I guide SW a little bit here. So let's start with
no problem.
that day. I really feel bad for what happened there.
Yeah, each operation had a different name. Some of them, there was quite a sense of humor selecting that specific name. Opsiheki, I don't know. That was the guys that was just before us. So they were the selection course 76, around there. Maybe I think there was 2 courses before us. So they were the guys, and they draw guys from 5. I don't think one. Yes, one definitely, and then 4. I don't think existed at that stage, and some of the 2 recce guys as well. These were it was a to summarize, it was a attack on a Swapo base on the southern part of Angola. So it was common sense afterwards to think that is typically infantry supported by fighter planes, mortars, artillery. It was supposed to be that kind of operation. It was like using a Mercedes and drive it through the bushes. To use special forces guys, we weren't trying to do base attacks, camp attacks at all. And 3-2 Battalion were also involved. 3-2 Battalion existed of old FNLA soldiers out of Angola, guerrilla fighters. So they come over, a lot of them came over to 3-2 Battalion. So they were the stopper groups, and the guys from 1-5, some of 2 were the actual frontline attacking the base. But 3-2 Battalion was getting busy in the area. So the Swapo camp, I'm not sure how many were there, it was a lot of them, were aware there was activity before. So the guys were dropped off, I believe, 20 k's, 25 k's too short before the actual attack. The idea was to, where you drop, you can start fighting immediately. They were dropped 20 k's, 25 k's too short. And a guy like Kali Grailing, who was carrying an LMG, he had about 500 rounds with him. Now, you walk through the bushes 20, 25 k's before you start fighting. I mean, that by itself, I mean, you were low on water. It wasn't really rations, anything that you took with you. You were supposed to hit the deck, fight, and a couple of hours later it would be finished. And so they walked one flank, walked right into anti-aircraft weapons. It was 14.5, probably 23 mil, we used for anti-aircraft, opened fire on them. And that killed a lot of 1 recce guys. France, top of my head, I can't remember all the names. Yeah, they killed him instantly. But the guys fought right through the base, cleaned it up. It's not about how many guys they killed, but it was whoever decided to use let's put it, the best soldiers, but reconnaissance soldiers to attack a base was insane. And one general that was involved there, these guys had a reunion a couple of years after that. And they invited him. He was like the second in command from the top, just below Minister of Defense. I'm not going to mention his name because it came from him to use Special Forces guy to attack that base. They invited him to the reunion, and he said he can't face the guys because he knew it was a suicide mission. I mean, no support, no artillery, no backup planes, just you with your AK and your LMG, and I think 1 or 2 guys had RPD. They were totally outgunned.
Yeah, they were like light infantry. It's not the job of Special Forces to attack.
exactly.
a military base, because you're going to run into bunkers, anti-aircraft weapons, heavy weapons. It's
Yeah,
amazing that they could actually break into the base and make an end.
yeah, and it was everybody that was fit. All the operators was on that operation, Eheki. And I think, wasn't it for our selection course, there would have been only a handful of operators left, because they, at that stage, a very small group. So our 20 plus guys sort of were about 70% of all the operational guys. Yeah, so that's how we were, our introduction into special forces.
But
we
you
were left
missed out
behind.
on that operation, and you're
Yeah,
presumably alive today because there wasn't space for
yeah,
the aircraft taking them north.
exactly.
Yeah, that must have been one hell of an introduction. All right, so when came your first operation in Mozambique? But you didn't, yes, in Mozambique, but you were flying towards actually Rhodesia. Can you just tell us about that? I've given a little bit away here. If I
Yes.
understand correctly, you got orders to report somewhere, and of course you went.
Yeah, we were informed to put on civilian clothes. You had your webbing, chest webbing, AK, kidney pouches, your rucksack. So you took that and extra clothes. So they said you're going to be away for 2 months, actually a little bit longer, 3 months. And they said you have to put on civilian clothes. And then we climb into Dakotas. I remember 2 Dakotas. And once we were in the air, they actually told us, you're now on your way to Rhodesia. And they give each guy a bag with his Rhodesian camouflage in it. And we wore waxies kind of boot, which was quite comfortable. And we also wear that tacky boots, the one with supposed to leave no track. But yeah, that's a rumor. If you got 30, 40 kilograms on your back. So we deployed in the southern part of Rhodesia. We were stationed at on a game farm. And if I remember correctly, it was Rhodesian was the farm's name. And there was a small airstrip. So what I did on the northern part of Rhodesia, the northern part of Mozambique, they withdrew the Selous scouts and they withdrew the SAS guys. These were the 2 units that would operate like us externally. And then it also had RLI, Rhodesian Light Infantry, but they were internal. So they took these guys out of the northern part of Mozambique, what they call the Russian front, and they put us in there. So it was just a swap of troops, basically. We were deploying 8-man teams, 6 to 8-man teams, and our team leader was Koki de Toy, same leader on our minor tactics course, same guy. Okay, then we did a little bit of rehearsal, but everything by then you're operational. They would brief you about the enemy in the area, what we are supposed to do. Now, our purpose there was to disrupt enemy lines. Now, deployed in Mozambique was, of course, for Lima himself. That was the guys from Mozambique.
Army.
Yeah, and then there was also Zipra terrorist.
ZANU, I think. The 2.
Yeah, ZANU was more in Zambia side, if I'm correct. I may have the 2 wrong way around. But
yes, they were Rhodesians. They were the ones fighting against Rhodesia as such, but they were.
That's it. That's
mostly
operating.
like Rhodesians who became freedom fighters, let's call them that.
Yeah, they would have operated out of Mozambique and out of Zambia, doing ambushes and things into Rhodesia. So that we were briefed, and then all our deployments was by parachute, and it was at night time. We normally leave in 1 Dakota. We were only 6 to 8 guys, and then the pilot would fly on a specific bearing when you know where to drop us off. The first ops, I think most of it we dropped at 800 feet. You don't want to hang around in the air too long. So, and then your backpack rucksack would be 40, 45, 50 kilograms. A lot of that is water, because we weren't sure, is there water? But then, of course, food. And then a couple of guys will carry landmines. And I was the lucky guy to carry the radio. That by itself is probably 15 kilograms. And then you add all the other things on top of that. And then in front, you will have a chest webbing, 3 magazines, a compass, a beta light, something that you can use at night. We will have a day glow panel. It was either white or like an orange color. That panel which you would put on the ground for the guys to, if they must come in for airstrike or see where you are, they can pick that up at 15,000 feet. They can pick that panel up. Then you would have your escape invasion on your body, on your kidney pouches, your medical bag, and 2-liter bottle of water will be on your kidney pouches. So if you dump your rucksack, that will be on your body. So you can run and you can survive a couple of days without your rucksack. Then and then all these basic drills from parachute battalion was gone. There was nothing like a shovel. You can't shovel with a 40 kilogram. I'm not sure how many is that in pounds. Double, 2.5. Yeah, so probably 90
pounds. It's more than double.
Yeah,
it's a lot. It's really a lot. If you think still, you were weighing, what, 72 kilograms
72.
about that, and you're carrying about 45 kilograms besides your rifle and your ammo. And
exactly.
It's incredible, yeah. So you would shuffle into the door, and now you're standing waiting there with a red light on, and you're hooked up because it's static line.
Yeah, you would be close to each other, as close as possible, and then the red light goes on, and then the green light. If you look through the window, you can't really see anything. It's pitch dark at the bottom. And then the first guy will go out, and then you battle to be as close as possible to the guy in front of you, and the instructor will help you out. And then all 8 guys will hit the bushes at the bottom. And if you look up, it looks like daylight. If you look down, it's pitch dark. And the only way you would know that you're close to the ground, you will hear the other guys falling through the trees. If you're lucky, you hit the tree. It sort of break your fall.
Keeping your legs together, I hope.
That's a rumor. And your rifle will be tied to your right leg. I could be wrong. You're supposed to do false caramaroliki.
Yes, a parachute
false
roll
to the side.
No, yeah, that's we do it very graciously during training, but I've seen guys just plump down. I mean, you're just too heavily loaded.
Yeah.
If you can get up and walk out of there somehow, then that was a very good landing.
Yeah, you arrive like a bag of potatoes there on the ground. So.
The dropping zone is not really a rugby field or something. That is the actual bush. So you must be landing on a lion or something.
Yeah, no idea. And quite a few times we would drop off incorrectly. So we had to walk until we get a landscape, a little bit higher ground or a small river. That would sort of say, okay, now we're 20 k's off or 30 k's off. And then you can only start getting accurately where you are. And then we would meet up at night, and then we would hide our parachutes away. I mean, it was impossible. Plus your reserve parachute, put him under the bushes. Within that first operation, we realized it was a waste of time. because we would lie up, and then the next day we would see them walking past very close to us. Parachutes, reserve, then they found it. And then, of course, they exactly know how many guys you are. And then they will master their guys. And then they will follow you for the whole trip while you're there. And now we were there to disrupt, plant landmines, blow up the railway lines, lay ambushes to ambush vehicles, ambush soldiers. So that was our actual task. And then, of course, they would follow you, and you would hit contact after contact after contact. And you've probably seen that clip from Joe Gal. Yeah, he's also brought out a book on a different name. So you will, every second day, you will hit a contact. And our drills, our actual drills saved us, because what we would do, we would walk on a bearing, and then the team leader would say, okay, there's a nice spot where we can lie up for the night. And we would do that at dawn. What is in the afternoon late is dawn, or is it dusk? Dusk is no morning.
Dawn is in the morning, I believe.
So dusk, yeah.
Yeah, just when the sun goes, just before the sun goes down.
Yeah, just before last light. And then we would go into that hiding, very quiet. Of course, you will make a dog leg, and you will come back to where you want to be for the night, sometimes in the day. And then we would roll out our claymore. Claymore was just like small ball bearings in a plastic cover, like a U shape, and then with explosives at the back. And then you would put your detonator in there, roll out the wire, and then you have a battery. And that sort of also always give us the initial firepower, because they would walk on your track, and then they will, before they hit the dog leg, they will be right next to you. And that's where we would open up with claymores. And a normal contact is 15 seconds, not more than that, 20 seconds. If it's anything more than that, you're in trouble. And that initial shock that we put on the enemy would always give us the opportunity to get out of there. And like Jock indicated there, at one trip there were about 100 guys behind us, following us on our tracks, because they now were getting tired of us hitting them and getting away every time. And maybe I should add the radio intercept that was there from the enemy side. It was from one base to the other base, where they said, there's a new enemy in our territory. They're more aggressive, they're better organized, try to capture one alive. So then it was the Boer that were there, different tactics, different way of operating. And they picked it up, and they were planning to capture one of us alive. So you always have to be one step in front of them.
Okay,
of course,
I want to just explain to the viewers here that when we published the Afrikaans version of these talks, SW was explaining very much as he's explaining now. And this Jock fellow was also a member of a regiment or commando at that stage, and he was on a patrol a few miles away, probably 100 kilos away. And now you have to understand something. These men, there's about 6 to 8 of them in each patrol, without air support, without any support. In fact, they dropped behind enemy lines. Now when moving, they've been picked up. And the contact in our terminology means to shoot at the enemy, and the enemy shoots at you. That's what we mean when we say a contact. It's one of the most exhilarating things to hear on the radios when you hear that contact reports coming in. Some of these people are very calm, you know, like contact, blah, blah, blah. And some of them are like, well, I can't speak like a girl, but their voices goes up about, and you hear those gunfire. And all hell breaks loose. Of course, these are armed men looking for each other. This is soldier against soldier. This is not a band of terrorists attacking a farmhouse or attacking a village or a kraal. These are soldiers matching up against each other. So there were about 100 of them following you at one stage. I will put that Jock, when he heard the first interview which we did in Afrikaans, he wrote something which was fantastic. in the sense of they proved everything which SW was telling us. And it also was very, very touching. So I'm going to put that a little, probably on top of a chapter, where it's a little inscription where we normally put these things, but I will definitely put it in the book.
Yeah.
So you're walking this patrol, you're hitting contact after contact. Can I just ask you if you can just explain to the listeners here, what uniform were you wearing now? Because the South African Army is not issued with AK-47s. The thing is very NATO orientated.
Yes, olive green was the Cuban olive green. Mozambique was, especially the northern part of Mozambique, very green. High temperatures, humidity is high, so the olive green actually fitted in quite nice. And then we would be wearing AK-47s, and you would be completely black. Everything that sticks out, but your sleeves will roll down to protect you against the branches. You will be wearing a hat, and your face is completely black. Your hands is completely black. We didn't wear gloves; it's too hot. We didn't wear sunglasses. It's not going to work in the bush. You will be sweating, so the sunglasses will just block your view. I can maybe start with our first casualty on our side. We were walking, I think it was around 10 o'clock in the morning. And we were walking in a Scorpion patrol, which means we had 2 scouts in front. Then normally the team leader, then one guy behind him, and then there would be the Scorpion's tail to the left or to the right. The other guys walking there, so they could swap whichever way the attack is coming from. So we hit a patrol from their side. We hit them from the flank. And I remember just before the contact, I heard a trumpeted hornbill. Makes an ugly noise. It's a big black bird with a snarl, big. It's curled like this, and it makes this screaming noise. And it picked us up, and it probably picked up the enemy as well, and it sent that warning signal to the other birds. And I think it was 2 or 3 seconds after that, and I looked to my right, and I saw one of them. I'm not sure if it was the scout. And the first thing I saw was that he is like a mulatto color. He's not black. So that put me a little bit off guard. And like a second or two, that nearly cost me my life. It's because in my mind, I thought he must be black, completely black. He's not supposed to look like that, like a colored guy, even a lighter skin like that. So and then the next moment, all hell broke loose, and one of our corporals, Corporal Ganau, a Portuguese guy, he ran forward into the enemy lines, and then after all the dust settled and we did a head count, we realized Ganau is gone. So we swept forward, and he was lying on his back, and he was hit through the head at the back. So that was our first casualty, and then we had to carry him out of the contact area, and then the other heads will come and take him out. Of course, then you completely compromise. And then it's when they put that 100+ guys on our track, and then we lying up, and they walked past the before the dog leg. And one of the guys, they were so close to us, so they were getting clever now. They didn't walk directly on the track. They walked on the left of, only 1 or 2 guys following the track, and the left of them, the rest of them were off center. And this guy's to the left, and they walked behind the claymore. And one of them saw the wire running. And luckily for us, he picked it up and he walked towards the claymore, not towards us. And I think it was Jake's. Waited until he was very close to the claymore, and he put the claymore off, and the backblast killed the guy. And then they attacked us heavily. I can't remember how long the contact was, and then they ran away. And Kokkie de Tooi showed us to stand up. I was his signaler. I carried the radio because I believe I was good in Morse. I was the smaller guy there carrying this heavy radio. So he showed us to stand up. Even after the contact, there was no shouting. You were quiet. And he showed us move forward, and he walked to the left of the tree, and I walked to the right of the tree. And just before we meet up again, a wounded terrorist shot him through his arm, and it went right through his heart, this side out again. And well, we killed that guy, but it was a stupid drill. It was from head office that whenever we have had a contact, you must go and do a head count. And that was silly because the bush is so thick, and that proved it was a silly idea, stupid idea. And it was the last time ever we did it. If you have a contact, we would leave it. Sometimes the signalers will get a interception, and then they would know. These guys talk about guys killed from their side. And then now we were 7 guys. We started as 8 guys. We were 7. Gana was killed. Now Kokkie was killed. So we were 8 guys, 6 guys left. So we carried Kokkie. 4 guys had to carry him in that what do you call it? Like a canvas sheet.
Ground sheet.
Yeah, ground sheet. Yeah, ground sheet. And it's extremely difficult. And so now we were moving out of that area, and we carried him for, must be 15, 20 k's until we hit a high ground. We went into the bushes, and we lied up there for the night. And we put his body away on the side. And remember, this all happened at pitch darkness. And the next day, we couldn't find the body. So we had to track around circles till eventually we found the body. And then we had to walk another 5 k's or so, and then they picked up his body. So yeah, now we were 6 guys left, and then we carried on. At least they brought each guy a nice steak and water, always water, and a little bit of rations and ammunition. And we carried on, I think, for another month, because before they actually withdrawn us out of that. Another contract I remember was we were also lying up, and we heard, just show you why you must be quiet. We heard one of them walking, and the tip of his rifle caught a branch, and I heard a ting. And I know nothing else in the bush have anything metal, not the locals. And I show the guys, you turn your thumb up like that and you show it downwards. That means enemy. And everybody knows it's from that side because our track is on our eastern side. And then all hell broke loose. And it was a firefight. And I remember the guy in front of me, McIver, that was his surname. He's some old Rhodesian guy. Can't remember his name now. He had a couple of shots in his rucksack. His water bottle was leaking. I think he thought he was bleeding. And it was actually his water bottle leaking. And then Willie Ward was our team leader. He told me to take one of the guys' landmine. So I put it on the ground, just on with the landmine, you would have like a plate the size of a cake that you will always put under the mine. The purpose of that is all the mines had an anti-lift. So if you dig a hole, it's not level. Now if you put your mine there without that lid, it will go off. So I put the lid on the ground, put the mine there, activated, and we left. And I think it went off. Yeah, we heard a massive noise. They must have picked it up. Big surprise. Whoever was close to it is still traveling.
I must ask you, You speak with great respect about Koki. Can you tell us about the man, your
Yeah, he
commander,
was.
patrol commander?
I would say he did everything himself. He would walk what we call a pacer in his hand, and he would count every second or every 6 meter. He would count. From the moment we know exactly where we were, he would walk with that pacer. So he did all the navigation himself. He took all the decisions himself, but he was a brilliant soldier. I remember he sent me and Dave Davis one late afternoon. He sent us to collect water. We learned the lesson. He said, yeah, just walk where you hear the frogs. We walked about 5 k's, and then we only find the water. So if you hear a frog, it's not always the water, it's just around the corner here. And then on our way back, we realized we lost. So we moved back on our track, and I think we were there for about an hour and a half. Then Koki came. So he tracked us there, and he come and he collected us, and he took us back to the team. So he was an excellent, brilliant soldier. Same with Willie Ward, very level-headed guy. He was the 2IB under Koki, and then he became the team leader after Koki's death. And then was the rest of us. A lot of the guys on the photo there was the guys there on that first operation, 2 or 3 teams.
Well, it's as we said in the first episode that his brother, Koki's brother, became quite famous as Wynand de Tooy, who was captured in Angola. We're not going to repeat the story here. I'm just trying to get everything for people into perspective. So, if I understand you correctly, you first lost your Portuguese sergeant or Portuguese member. Then you lost your commander. The helicopters came to fetch both bodies, but not at the same time, of course. And still, you were not withdrawn. The patrol just kept on going. And you kept on fighting until you finally got back to Rhodesia.
Yeah, then we were the 6 guys, and nothing changed. We had to still do exactly the same. Now, of course, they know where we were. So we were always one ahead of them, that our drills were better than this. I think our shooting was more accurate than this. And we had the benefit of the claymores. And maybe that was why they were decided they're not going to walk on the tracks anymore. They would have the 2 scouts walking on our tracks. And then the attacking guys would be on far left. And that's why they ended up behind our claymores. So they quickly changed when they realized what we were doing. So you always have to be one step ahead of them, because they know exactly how many you are. They're excellent in tracking. And if you're 6, they multiply that by 6 or 7 or 8 to make sure that they outnumber you. And they would carry
of course, are armed. These are not just normal herdsmen or something walking around. These are trained soldiers. And they're looking for you.
Yeah, they were trained soldiers, and they would have their PKMs or RPDs or Russian weapons. They would have mortars, RPGs. They could carry that heavy weapons because they're not far from their base. I mean, they don't have to walk miles. We couldn't carry that heavy. Our most heavy weapon was the RPD, and I eventually carried one. It's a light machine gun. Shoot the same round as an AK-47. We would carry one of them.
How would you rate the AK-47 as a weapon?
It was ideal for our condition in the bush. It's a low maintenance weapon. It's not as accurate as the R1. Not the same penetration, but your contact in the bush is close to you. 30 meters, 40 meters, because it's so dense and they're very close to you. So it's not if you're lying there on a shooting range and you shoot them a kilometer away from you. It's in your face.
Yes,
Yeah,
and it's
so-
quite short, you know, and it had quite a big magazine capacity.
Yeah,
I
so
have
30
to
rounds.
wonder
Yeah.
where you people got hold of those weapons, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
we would sometimes. I remember with that ops where Cocky was killed. He picked up a AK that, close to the two of us. One of the guys that was killed, and he came back and he showed me. He said, "Look here, the guy put a branch in front of the barrel and broke it off." It didn't make sense. I mean, why do that? And left the weapon there in a hurry. And he told me they did exactly the same on Ops Heki. Also did the same thing. Put a branch in, break it off in the barrel.
Well, they were trying to disable it in some way, because if you then start shooting that thing, it should explode. You know,
Yeah.
the barrel should split off and perhaps do damage to you.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful weapon, the AK-47, as far as I'm concerned. Just a brilliant design. And long lasting, and for Africa in the bush, it was perfect, as you say, because
no low maintenance. I mean, we a lot of nights we slept in the rain, in the cold, never got sick. So it just shows you it's not the weather that makes you sick. It's whatever is in the air that makes you sick.
So may I ask you, because some of the questions I received on the Afrikaans version is, what would you eat while you're on such a patrol, if you have time to eat?
Yeah, unfortunately, afterwards, when I went and spotted at Tux, I would get very much involved with eating correctly and so forth. We would, at one stage, fortunate to have the American freeze dries, where you just add water, but there wasn't a lot of nutrition in that. Now I know the best nutrition would have been a tin of bully beef, because it's protein and it's fat. That's what you were actually needing.
Because you were burning energy, I suppose. I mean, it's warm, you're carrying this horrible load, and then you're under stress.
Yes, and then we would have some of the rations in our standard South African rat packs, the raisin bars. You would have your own porridge, pronito or something like that. Tins, we try not to carry too many tins, it's just too heavy. And remember, each liter of water is 1 kilogram. And you carry about 20 liters of water, 30 liters of water. And you can easily, if you walk like that, 30, 40 k's a day, you can easily consume 10 liters of water, easily. But we were fortunate. One day we walked into like a more rocky area, and we saw this small hill, and on top it was like flat. And I saw there was a pool of water there, not very deep. And I filled my water bottle, and we filled all the guys' water bottles. And the water level was exactly still the same, crystal clear water. Yeah, so it was. And the other times we had to get water pools where there were cattle, but we didn't. The moment you see cattle, the hair in your neck start raising, because you know that's locals. And if locals see you, you compromise immediately. They run as fast as their legs can carry them, and they warn the army or the guerrilla forces in the area. They immediately see you and they realize this is not our own forces here.
Yeah, so you couldn't really, I mean, I know that
Yeah, and we
people
left
have a bit of beards and things like that just to try to fit in, to break your white features.
Yeah.
I'm not being racist here, but we don't look the same. The races don't look the same.
Yeah,
and you
and
were
then
in
of
black
course
country, so
you were heavily loaded, and we look like a oiled machine. Everybody looks the same. It's not a ragtag army, and they realize immediately this is not our own forces. And of course, we didn't say, okay, let's shoot one of them before they run off. We left him. We were not there to kill civilians.
okay, so that as far as you know never happened. It's not a matter like you know, a herd boy or somebody saw you, you captured him, cut his throat. Because you hear all these rumors. I mean, the sad thing about the South African Special Forces is you hear such a bunch of nonsense. I've never heard you even say to me once that during training you were issued a little puppy dog and then you had to cut his throat.
Yeah,
It's nonsense. But you get so many people telling you that nonsense.
yeah,
If I can ask you, if I can quickly ask you, it's not really part of what we're talking about now, but it's important. How would you know if somebody tells you that he was also a Special Forces member? What's the first questions you're going to ask him to find out if he's one of these lying people or he's genuine?
The first thing you can work out, the war was from 75 when the South African Army moved to Luanda. They stopped the Americans' withdrawal. 75 till 88. That was the war. So if you get a young guy, all of a sudden start talking all this war stories, you are asking, okay, so when were you in the army? No, I was there in the 90s. There was no more war. The war stopped 88. It was finished. End of 88, it was finished. Then the other thing is that you have a operator's badge. I've got mine here. I don't know if I can show it.
Yeah, you can show us if you don't mind. If it's not.
You get a golden one if you were there 10 years and longer. It's a dagger with a, what do you call it, Luriekrans.
Yes.
You see, and then at the back, let me just make sure I'm holding it correctly now. Yeah. At the back is your unique number, and mine is 023.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes,
that
23.
Each operator get a badge like this. Okay. And so, but firstly, you work out if the guy is a young guy, there's no way he could have been in the war. Anything after 88, he never fired a shot in anger. And yeah, there's a lot of Special Forces guys after us, excellent guys, but unfortunately there was no more war for them to get the experience. And yeah, normally you can ask a guy, okay, so what's your number? And then he will give you his army number, 743470. Now your operator's number, and that is the younger the guys, the higher his number is supposed to be. So it starts from 01. I'm not sure where they are now nowadays, where they are up to.
So you would have been a 23rd member of Special Forces.
Yeah, that showed you what impact Eheki had. There was only a few operators, qualified operators before me or our group. So that killed like 20% if you have to calculate it, of all the capable operators.
Okay, and this number, this 23, is unique to you. Should you pass on, somebody else cannot now claim that number. It will always be issued to you and you alone.
Yeah, that's it. Nobody else can have the same number.
So I also want to say here that if you say you weren't Special Forces in South Africa in those days, sorry, you had to be in Army Special Forces reconnaissance regiments. There is no other Defence Force Special Forces rated unit whatsoever. Yeah. It's only those units and nothing else.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys, they say they were in such a secretive unit, not even the Minister of Defence know about this unit. Then you know it is only him and one officer that knows about this unit.
Yeah, no, that's nonsense, because you people all know each other. I did give us the statistics in the first episode. I'll just give it again. I don't know if you've come here just now to listen to us, but it will be in the book as well. But I believe that 481 men has actually qualified as operators out of 100,000 with charts, and that is over 40 years. So there's no way in the world that you can lie and say you were in Special Forces if you were not. But basically, what do you do if you find out that somebody lied, that he's walking around saying he's a Special Forces member. I mean, that should piss you off.
Yeah, what happened as well is the guys would apply for a job overseas, and at the security company. Now, what happened, normally the guys in charge of that security company are ex-soldiers, British, American, or mostly British, like in Afghanistan or Iraq. Then they would apply for a job there, and then Special Forces will be on page 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And then their leagues will make contact with our leagues and say, can you verify this guy? And then, of course, what we will do, we will put him on the wall of shame. So that it's a website there on the wall of shame, and you can see all the guys, all the wannabes that claim they are operators. Their names will be on there.
Yes, I will put the link to that website here. I just want to say to anybody, if you meet someone who says he's been a Special Force member, he's probably lying to you. But if he isn't, you can always contact the Special Forces Bond. Just ask them. They're very polite people, and they will within minutes tell you they've never heard of this guy with a few choice words.
Yeah, I remember we had a braai reunion about 2 months ago. Some year as Sergeant Major Moorcroft's birthday, and we were talking then, and James Tate, a good friend of mine, I invited him where I was working at SA Communication Service. I was there my 3rd year already, and he met all my friends, Fred and Peter and all the other guys, and he asked him, so what do you think of what SW was doing in his life? And they said, what was he doing? So they never knew I was in the army. They knew I was in the army, but they never know where I was. So it is not, the moment somebody say I was in the recce, you know immediately. We don't use the word recce. So I was in reconnaissance regiment, and then you leave it there. And I was at a braai once with Peter, and he had friends there, and he told one of the guys, yeah, you know, SW was in the recce. I didn't say anything. I didn't add anything. And one of the guys came to me and he said, he was in the army. He said, do you know Piet Pochen? I said, no. Do you know Chris Bluff? No. And he carried on. He must have mentioned 4 names. And I could see on a look on his face, he said, you the bullshitter here. These are all my friends, and they were all there.
You have to laugh about that, but well, I suppose it impresses women or other people. I don't know. People are desperate for work, but you really should not go out and lie about these things. The message I'm getting here over is you're gonna get caught out and humiliated. It's not worth it, guys. It wasn't for everybody. There's no shame, I think, in failing. It's not for everyone.
Yeah, and on average, and I think I did mention it in the beginning, is that we would have been in a year, at least 8 months, you deployed. And that's not sitting at a base somewhere packing rat packs, deployed, operational. Not sitting in the northern part of Uwambo land, lying in the sun and tan, you deployed. And then you would come back, and then you would have a week's rest, and then you would start training, especially with the more clandestine, where you blow up breaches and that, then you would train. Some of that operations we rehearsed for 2 months before we actually do it. And then somewhere in between, you would do courses as well. So there wasn't time to get married, get children. That was out. So that is our idea, how small the group were, and that they would use the same guys over and over and over.
Yes, perhaps you can tell us quickly. I think we will go in the next episode to what happened after this first patrol, because I see we've been busy more than an hour again. I must tell you, SW, even in English, you're very, very interesting. It's of course not the first time I hear all these stories, but I can tell you, folks, I lose time, or lose track of time when I listen to this, because I think the book is going to be fantastic. You once mentioned to me that between the 3 regiments, 1, 5, and 4, How many men could they muster for an operation? I believe you
There
spoke
was
about that.
one day, Colonel Bisbee, he was our BEF, said that they prepared us for an operation, and between the 3 units, they could master 50 guys in total. That's between 4 recce, 1 recce, 5 recce, not 2. 2 were civilians that were gone. They're not interested in the army anymore. Of course, there were a couple of guys, of course, and then there were a couple of guys wounded. But they couldn't get more than 50 guys in total.
Yeah,
So,
that's a very select group. That's extremely small.
Yeah, and then they would, of course, never lower the standard to get more operators in. The process was exactly the same. And there were a couple of guys that passed the election, specifically the older election, would come into a unit, but then the operators will work him out. He never fit in. He never should have been there. And then the operators just work him out and they would leave. Yeah, there was, especially if there was a guy, there was an operation where they blowed up a tunnel. We can maybe talk about that, but he killed 2 civilians with driving an old Volkswagen. He killed him. He could have stopped him and tell him to turn around, and he killed him. And after that, he was never accepted in the unit again, and he left. Never joined any of our unit, of our chat groups, never heard of him again. So that showed you we had respect for life. You don't just kill because you have the weapon in your hand. They didn't know we were there. We were going to blow up the tunnel in front of them, and they stopped. You should have never killed them.
Yes, it's sad that such things happen, but I'm glad it was dealt with. But now I have to ask you something. I don't think you can answer this out of your head, but if possible, I will put the links down here. In the previous ones, in Afrikaans ones, you were mentioning these special forces groups, these WhatsApp groups and other groups you people have, where you communicate with each other. Now, obviously, that's closed groups. There's no way in hell that a normal person will get in there, and why should he? But I also recall you saying that you sometimes assist people with advice on security, things like that.
Yes.
And I know that the Special Forces League, they also do that, sell ration packs, all sorts of things. We were trying to talk to them as well to explain exactly what they do and how the civilians can get involved to support a good initiative. But if somebody wants security advice from one of these groups, if you can just email me perhaps, or let me know what such a group, where they can find it, because they're asking me about that. They want to know. Yeah, it is, of course, it will be related to the area that you live in. Pretoria, Joburg, the biggest centers, Durban, it will be more easily guys living on a small town, farmers specifically. Farmers are very hard-headed. They think they can, maybe their eyes have opened now that they do need advice from the outside. The guys operating, or the farm killers, are getting more sophisticated in equipment they are using. They're 5-10 guys attacking a farmhouse. Yeah, so our guys can give the guys good advice to have early warning systems in place, and then also to communicate with people around you. Yes, you need a plan. I mean, that's one big thing. You need a plan. You need to know what to do if something goes wrong. And what I've seen is most people have no clue, and especially in these days. And of course, while these groups of yours can help South Africans and say Namibians, people in Africa, I also know that there's a big chance of terrorist attacks in the US as well as in Europe. And what I've seen here in Europe, where I am now with my wife, is they have absolutely no clue what to do if those shots are being fired. Exactly. And I think a lot of them are going to die. I'm sad to say that. And it doesn't matter, as I always say to people, whether that terrorist is actually black or white or Muslim or Jewish or Christian or Hindu, we don't care. The fact is he's out there to kill. And therefore you have to deal with him. And if you don't know what to do, well, then I think you have to contact me, because I can tell you what to do, or you can read one of my books on what to do. Because we live in uncertain times. We really live in times which are ugly.
Yeah, it's not a lot that you need in place. You just need early warning systems in place. In South Africa, you have to, there's hotspots which you have to approach correctly. But it's unbelievable how stupid people are.
That's true. You just need to drive down the road and see how many people, and I'm not saying women, I'm not saying men, all of them. You know, you're sitting there chatting on your damn cell phone, which you shouldn't do anyway, and all your doors are unlocked. If you know a guy gets into the back of that door, he's got a knife or whatever, you're dead. You can't defend yourself.
Yeah, and they don't pick up the car that just stopped next to them. Never less than 4 guys watching. And they're following you. And
yeah, there's a lot of things.
Not from that traffic light. They've been following you for a while. And people don't pick up that because they're too busy with the cell phones and radios. In South Africa, you have to be alert. You have to see that's a hotspot, this is a hotspot. Traffic light, that traffic light, I'm not going to stop it. I'm going to slow down long before it. So when I reach it, it will be green. So it's small things like that we can help the civilians. Well, I'm also a civilian, but tell them, be alert.
Yes, be alert and follow your instincts, I would say. There's a lot of things, but we can talk about that. You know what, perhaps we can make a separate episode.
Yes.
On just basic security. We can do that when we're done with this. I want to say to everybody listening here, you are welcome to ask questions. You can write to me. I will put the email in for you, or you can leave a comment below. But keep it civil. There's a few fellows who wrote a few comments in Afrikaans, which we thought, well, that might not be respectful enough. And, you know, we're not children anymore. You over 60 years old. Hard to believe. I myself not a child anymore. So just keep it respectful. And if I can also ask you, this is a listener now, if we said something somewhere which bothers you, please just tell us. It's minute, say, 25. You know, we said something, and repeat it, because we can't go back, listen to all the recordings just for you. But if there's questions, if there are questions there which repeats, obviously I think SW, you'll be willing to come back to answer specifics, as far as it's possible legally, of course, and operationally.
Yeah.
So I think what we can do tonight is call it a day, yeah? And then next time we carry on with the further incidents and patrols and operations in Mozambique.
Yes. Yeah.
That's okay with you, because I know you've got small kids you have to look after. It's Sunday night. Oh, well, but the schools are closed. There's a lockdown in South Africa again, I'm sorry to say, but still. And thank you, SW.
Thanks, Chris.
As I said to you, even in English, you're damn interesting.
Correct. I'm catching up on the English.